Okay, I am going to ask my panelists to join me on the dais. I've always wanted to say that. And as they are making their way this way, I am going to share a few words about how today came to be. So, as I mentioned, for those of you in our viewing audience, we are an Equity Assistance Center based in San Antonio, Texas. I'm not a San Diego native. I'm a San Diego native, transplant to university in Texas, and I just stayed. And so I now reside in San Antonio, and I came upon 9 years ago this organization that was doing tremendous things in education. I was a math teacher at the time. I had no idea that this world even existed. I was happy in my district as a curriculum specialist, as a math coordinator. I became a math department chair, and I loved what I did. But I always knew something was wrong as a teacher. Finding myself the only black woman in the math department in almost every school I taught at. Knowing that my students were not getting the treatment that they always deserved. They didn't have people to believe in them. I always thought of myself as like Evan Almighty or Ace Ventura because everyone just flocked to me that needed some kind of care. I have about 10,000 children, I feel, or I'm an auntie to somebody because I cared. And so that is something that is important in the world of education that I think we forget sometimes, that children need care. And so because I didn't want to shoot from the hip this morning, I wrote down a few things that I wanted to share with you before we get started to introduce our panel. Since the dawn of time, the aspects of the human condition have been based on the position of privilege born out of power and oppression. The haves leave a legacy of comfort. The have-nots leave a tradition of struggle. This power dynamic is historically rooted in race and finance. People of color and limited resources continually find themselves marginalized, devalued, and on the receiving end of violence at the hands of those who have declared themselves superior. We are a nation of immigrants and slaves, continually seeking to disrupt the belief that we do not belong, that we are less than, that we are incapable, that we are undeserving of the rights, the natural rights of our humanity. King, Parks, Anzaldúa, and Chavez, they fought for our freedom in the 1960s. Yet here we are again in 2019, still fighting for our lives. And moreover, we are fighting for our minds. On February 14, 2018, a young man chose to express his internal demons, that's the only way I can say that, by wreaking havoc at Mary Stoneman Douglas in the Parkland community. Later that year, on August 11th, a group of people, humans, enacted senseless violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. The thing is, even when tragedy occurs within schools, tragedy occurs outside of schools, and it's affecting our children. So IDRA is all about equity in education, but equity in education means access to quality instruction, materials, resources, and facilities for every student, radically inclusive of their race, gender, national origin, religion, and their abilities, languages spoken, financial circumstances, neighborhoods they live in, number of parents at home, number of children at home, body style and size, sexual orientation, hair texture, and the style of their choosing. The list goes on. So I say all that to say this. We can no longer respond only in the aftermath of crisis and tragedy. Students are surviving every day through anxiety, depression, and abuses of all kinds. Students who do not fit the normative view of the self-declared majority find themselves in danger at every turn. Today, our students are fighting for their lives and their minds at home, in their communities, and at school. Who do they turn to? Today, our esteemed panelists will share stories and strategies from their districts that have the power to transform the way we care for the whole student. It is my honor to introduce Ms. Nadia Clarke, Assistant Director for Community Connections from Broward County Schools here in Florida. And joining me are Holly Jennings, Supervisor of Discipline and Compliance, and Ms. Stephanie Mullenkamp, Coordinator in School Counseling and Assessment from Amherst County Public Schools in Virginia. And they are going to share their stories and strategies that have been born out of their desire for equitable educational opportunities for every child in their school districts. Please welcome our panelists.
Good morning. Can everyone see me? All right. So I actually was going to sit down, but, you know, talking about equity, it wouldn't be fair if half the room can't see. Hold on. Welcome to Broward. Don't let the wind scare you. Our buildings are built to hurricane code. This is nothing. This is just a Friday breeze. I'm Nadia Clarke. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Family and Community Engagement here in Broward Schools. I have the pleasure of working with a phenomenal division. We cover such a variety of needs, supporting not just the academic, but really the whole child. Under our division, we have, well, you guys met Dr. Harris yesterday. We have David Watkins, we have Sabrina Jennings. We cover engaging families, we cover sexual health, we cover our DJ Day, we cover pretty much everything. It's a pretty broad shop. Now, I've been with Broward since 2016. Prior to that, I was in Maryland. I feel like I'm getting old. It's all just one blur. I had the pleasure of serving families in Baltimore City. Before that, I was in New York. Big up Brooklyn. Had the pleasure of serving families throughout all boroughs. So what we do know that wherever you go, there are children. There are children, there are families. And as we continue to find new ways to educate our children, I'm always reminded that children live in families, families live in communities, and what happened to one happens to all. Yesterday you heard a bit about Broward County. I'm not going to spend that much time talking about our district, but I want to just, set the stage a bit. So as you know, our vision is educating today's students to succeed in tomorrow's world. We want all of our students to reach their highest potential. We've embarked on a new strategic plan where we've whittled down, we're actually focusing on 3 goals: high quality instruction, safe and supportive environments, and effective communication. You'll see wrapped around those goals are all the different, are parts of the work that will happen, needs to come together in order to accomplish this. We've all been challenged to ensure that there is continuity with our work. So I can tell you that in our office and in our department, we want to align everything that we're doing to our goals. So the Office of Family and Community Engagement, we believe our function, our purpose, is to support the district's commitment to improving achievement, straight up. We facilitate community action. I mean, you can't be called family and community engagement if you're not, trying to do some action planning in the community, and provide learning opportunities and information for families. So through this lens, we offer tiered services. What we offer for all schools is a family and community engagement plan that's been embedded in our school improvement plan. Now, these are very simple steps that all schools can take to improve how we are interacting with families. We know that each school has its own culture. We respect that. We want our schools to be unique, to reflect the different communities that we're serving. 2 years ago, we've made a significant shift in looking at equity, and we've had a wonderful opportunity to not just work with our students, but actually work with our families. I've been very fortunate that I got to lead part of that work. In school year 17-18, God, it feels like so long ago, we embarked on a new equity walk, and the role that our office played was to actually host a series of community conversations across the district. Also that year, we had an opportunity to launch a new initiative called Sparks. We had some feedback from a number of principals who said, I need help engaging my community. I need additional support working with our families to ensure that they have all that they need. Also that year, we had a tragedy. So how do we continue to move forward with all of our plans as we support this new and emerging need? We did. That's life. We move forward with Sparks. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sparks, and then I'm going to go deeper into some of the other work. So Sparks is dedicated to enhancing and strengthening supports for educators. We do not expect teachers to be social workers. It's a different skill set. We don't expect principals to be clinicians. Again, different skill set. So by pulling department resources together for a cohort of 20 schools, we were able to create a Sparks team that included a social worker, the school psychologist, school counselor, and a community liaison. These individuals, along with others that have been identified at the school, and of course, the school leadership, principal and assistant principal, would really take a look at the school and say, well, what are our needs, and what are our resources, and what are the gaps? So I received the pleasure of working with the community liaisons. Now, Broward is a very diverse community, and you can go from one end to the next and come across, 40 different languages? Communities that you turn a corner, you're like, wait, am I still in the same county? And I think that is actually the beauty and the strength. However, Broward has changed over the years. And we know that as our communities are changing, the schools are also taking in new families, new cultures. And we want to be mindful that our communities are feeling welcomed in our schools and are reflected in the school staff. We also know that we're in this time where testing and data drives everything. So are we being intentional on how we're getting to know the communities that we're serving? So through the role of the community liaison, our team created and supported a plan for them to create intentional opportunities for families and schools to connect. Revisioning Parent Night, going out into the community and meeting parents where they are. Now, if you work with me for any time, you know that I love going in the community. I love having my little Broward badge and showing up at a laundromat. I'm telling you, you get to know everything when you're at a laundromat. What? A hair salon, a barber shop. You want to know what people really feel? Meet them where they are. So we empowered, trained, and supported our community liaisons to go out and meet our small businesses. Tell them about the wonderful work that's going on at schools. Hear from them what are their concerns, and also encourage them to be part of our school community. At the same time, our liaisons were working with cohorts of parents, helping them, advocate for their children, showing them what is the channel, how do I go up that chain of command, how can I contribute? Our parents are coming in at varying levels. We know that not everyone may want to tutor or volunteer in the classroom. There's actually a really phenomenal principal who is now principal at the high school my son goes to. Shout out to Boyd Anderson High School, yes. And he actually created, he had a law program in his former middle school. And you have a lot of families that were skilled tradesmen. Now, these were fathers who may not feel comfortable coming in for tutoring, but they could lay tile and they could build a court bench that actually would rival almost anything you find in a courthouse. So our community liaisons in our schools actually reached into the community and tapped into the inherent strength that was there. Proud to say that we are in our third year, and we are going to look at our data at the end of this year and be happy to share out and move forward what works and dig deeper and course correct what needs to be corrected. So again, these are the key players in the Sparks initiative. Now, through the equity lens, I'm going to go back to our community conversations. We were supposed to start our community conversations the third week in February. Actually, I take it back. I think it was the 15th. On the 14th, everything stopped. But we know that we don't want to shortchange one community for a tragedy in another. We were able to pick up back the work and go into the community and host our conversations. The goal was to really begin to talk about what is equity with our families, understanding our school board policies, and what does equity look like for you as a parent? 4 equity issues that impact our families the most. Now, we have been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years, and one of the tools that we have are our conditions that came out of the diversity committee, correct? So we use that as a guide for our conversation. We know that the 3 priorities were to improve access, improve safe and healthy, and can you imagine after February 14th, who wanted to talk about anything but safety? And improve the use of technology. These are the conditions that we use to guide all that we are doing through that equity conversation and help to really get to some of the actual parent-driven concerns where it came to the equity conditions. We also want to know, what are the parents' desired role in the district? I am a parent first. I'm the mother of 3. I have a 16-year-old, a 7, and a 4. Yes, the struggle is real. I'm also a working mom. I also have aging parents. Our generation looks a little different than it did 2 years ago. So what we are asking of our parents should also look a little different than what it did 2 years ago. We also have resources that may not have been available. Well, I mean, we know it wasn't available. So we have to think of what is real, what is relevant, and how do we use all tools to engage our families. We also know that parents have to understand the current conditions. You can't support what you don't know. We want to make sure that insufficient methods and practices of teaching and learning, we're replacing all of that. But we want to ensure first that parents are well informed. So what are our outputs versus our outcomes? We enlisted the aid and support of others in our division and created a team of facilitators, and we completed 33 school and community-based conversations. Low parent turnout at school-based ones. Does that sound familiar? Higher turnout at community-based ones. Our churches, our barbershops, people felt comfortable going there and talking. Workshop participants also had a very different view of equity. A number of them thought we were there to talk about the equity in their homes. And I included that because it was a moment for us where we do all of this work and planning and use this term and it becomes real to us, but it may not be as real for our community. So that was one nugget that I definitely hold on to. So did we really achieve our desired outcomes? we spent the summer thinking about, well, what is next? If we know that the term equity is still not real and relevant in our community, and that Broward is the 6th largest district in the nation, how do we make this work real and relevant? How do we secure the community voice in a way that makes sense? So we moved into school year 18-19, and we launched a new initiative. We used to call it the Community Equity Project. We have since renamed it CRESTS. It's Culturally Responsive Evidence-Based Strategies for Traumatic Stress. It's an emancipatory research model. Case illustration for equity and inclusion in education. And this actually was based on feedback that we received from families. So we are focusing on the Boyd, Anderson, and Dillard zones. If you know anything about Broward, these are two of our areas that for years have received various interventions, from mental health to academic to community development. And we're still finding our largest clusters of some of our lower performing schools. But if you know the community, you'll know that it is a really tight community. In some areas, families are helping each other in ways that never make it back to the school. So we know that in order to capture all of that and help bring additional resources, we had to go into the community. Our problem statement, to share that, we know that trauma, in addition to the major tragedy on the 14th, these are also communities that have experienced sustained trauma for generations. And while we were focusing and we're still recovering, I'm glad that Dr. Harris was able to broaden the conversation of recovery. And we know that we are rolling in all of our district and all of our areas that have historically been struggling with varying issues. So let's talk about culture and research. We have to be very mindful when we're working with diverse communities to ensure that we are representing and honoring the differences that are naturally occurring. The best way to do this is to humble ourselves and enter our community, not as I am the expert, but I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to help you find or create your voice. I'm here to connect you with resources, but I also honor and respect that you know what your challenges are. You know the vision that you have for your community. So how can we support that? The CREST model is broken up into 4 different initiatives. We've completed the needs assessment. This is where we had researchers come in. We met with 4 different stakeholder groups. We had our parents and guardians. We had our community members, because granted, you may not have children in Broward schools, but anything that happens in Broward schools impacts the community. And if you've ever been to PTA, trust me, you have people who've been on PTA for like 25 years and they're not going anywhere. So we want to value them as well. We also met with our educators, our partners, and our students. The next step is research translation, taking all that information and what does it mean? What are some of the common themes that we're finding? We're then going to go back to the community and begin our action planning. Okay, so here's what you said. Did we get it right? All right, so what do you want to do? What projects do you want to undertake? Once we have our action plan in place, we want to present it to the entire community, and that would be through the Family and Community Institute. So we want to share our outcomes, get some feedback, and of course, build additional support for our action plan. So where are we now? We've completed phase 1. It was a heavy lift. Unfortunately, our project has shifted. Our project has halted. There's a shift in funding, so we're exploring other funding opportunities. But we don't want to forget what we learned last year. We also want to maintain the relationships and the bridges that we built. So we're using the experience and the preliminary data to guide our work.
I'd just like to say thank you, Nadia. You know, in the world of education, time is so important. Every minute counts. And I just thank you for stepping in for Dr. Phillip Harris and representing Broward like a true champ. And thank you, really, for sharing with us.